Hi everyone, welcome back to our AMA section this week. My name is Chris and I'll be your host today. First of all, I would like to thank everyone for being here today for our AMA. As following the vision of Metacity, we remain on track to become the first and leading build-to-earn cityverse ecosystem. Today, we have a new speaker, Nguyen. Mun is our architect leader and is in charge of the overview of design and architecture construct of Metacity. So today, AMA will consist of three main parts as usual. The first one will be the greeting from our speaker. The second one will be the question we have prepared for our speaker. And the third part, of course, will consist of the Q&A from you guys to our speaker. So please remember that our AMAs, all of our AMA will have 200 USDT prize pool for the 5 most interesting and relevant questions asked in the current format. So please prepare your question and stay updated to see if you're the winner. So to kick off our AMA, I would like to introduce Mun, our architect leader. He will answer any question the community has in regards to the architectural design and construct. Before we start, hi Mun, how are you today? Sorry. Hi, how are you
Hello.
today?
Hello, everybody. I'm good. Hi,
Yeah.
Chris. Thank you for welcoming me today. My name is Nguyen, and I'm the architect leader of Metacity.
Hmm. Yeah. So would you like to introduce a little bit about yourself to our community?
Yes. Yeah, I'm an architect and a master planner, but actually, I'm not so much of a traditional one. I have 10 year experience in design building and master plan in the real world. Because for last year, I also have start designing for the metaverse. I study architecture at the Ballet UCL in the UK and working for
Yeah.
Zaha Hadid Architects in London for a while, and then Lava Architects in Hanoi. And before coming here, I have my own office specializing in computational design and parametric design for building in both real world and in the metaverse. Currently, I join force with Metacity to design and create a new world with endless possibility and unlimited freedom to be creative.
Cool. That's amazing. Thanks for that introduction. A lot of our viewers here today will be familiar with how our AMAs usually work. But for our new one, I would like to welcome them to our community and being a part of something spectacular. We will continue as scheduled for our next sections. Our question to speaker. During this session, please feel free to ask anything that you want relating to Easter City. I will then simply some question. If I find the most interesting one, then pin them to our speaker so that he can answer to the following section. So won't take the time any longer. Please come to the next section. The question between our host and our guest. At the first question, are you ready, Nguyen?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, for the first one, what is the most important issue facing architects and architecture in the digital age? What do you think?
Mm, mm. Well, I think according to McKinsey, I think it's digitalization index. The construction industry is actually one of the largest industry, but it's actually have the rate of digitalization is actually very low. It's actually like one of the lowest profession that have adapt automation within the profession.
Mhm.
And without current speed of development and innovation in this industry, I think we will face a lot of serious issue in the next 30 years. And I don't think we
Mm,
will be able to cope with like global problem like climate change or energy
yeah.
depletion, like pollution or housing shortage. And of course, we will have infrastructure overload uh, in the near future. And another problem that the keys that all of the key sober profession, um, which including architects, always have been slow in the adaptation of technologies like digital technologies.
Yes.
To compare with other design industry, like maybe example like games or movie, like architect is really slow on like adapting this.
Yeah.
I think also like building nowadays is not really able to adapt to the human need and the change of the environment. Um,
Mhm.
a lot we thought like making green building is not really effective to solving down the problem. And I think we design and build too much kind of unnecessary building, like commercial and a lot of like empty office building, while other essential building like housing or like hospital is not really enough. Like through
Mhm.
COVID time, we can see it very clearly that like it's not enough housing and enough hospital for to solve the problem. And it's
Yeah.
also time has also shown us that human actually have the capability to adapt, and
Mm,
we also like can replace many of the building, which like by online activity, by on like um, many activities that we do normally can be replaced by online, and then a lot of building become unnecessary.
mm,
And actually, within this COVID time, we see that like with less
yeah.
human movement and less building, especially have the environment to be cleaner.
Yes.
And
Oh,
also, last thing is that metaverse is obviously a new frontier for architecture. Because most of the architects now, I think, not really have enough skill to actually go into this metaverse.
hmm. Thank you for your answer. Yes, I do agree. It does seems like the differences between the real world architects and the one that are involved in the digital world can greatly differ. Thank you for your answer. So let's come to the second question. In fact, it does relates to the one have you have just answered. In sense of the differences between the real world and in Metacity, which is the second question. How does Metacity's architecture in different differentiate from that of the real world? What do you
Mhm.
think?
Yes, I think Metacity is basically a digital world,
Mm.
and many constraints in the real world do not exist in this cyberspace. I think, therefore, the master plan and the architecture as well should be very different. Of course, this is a space when all of the architecture dreams will become
Mm.
visualized and to be experienced within this world. And of course, I think the biggest constraints for architect actually in real world is gravity. Um,
Yes.
Architects have we all have been trying to defining gravity like for century actually. So, but also like for the last 70 years, human have been like reaching to outer space, and we actually have been designing building for like zero gravities. Um,
Mm.
but but this is something not like easy for like normal people to like experience. Um, and of course, in the metaverse, this constraint is actually like can be easily controlled by us. You can with I think of Metacity, you can buy gravity material to apply on land and to create structure that actually may look like impossible in real life,
Mm-hmm.
but possible in Metacity, and we can change it to adapt without need over time. Like of course, this cannot be done in the real world. Like gravity in the
Mm.
real world is not something you can play with.
Yeah, yeah, I
And
see that in
also,
the
um,
yeah. Yeah, I
like
can see
the
that in the picture. Yeah, I can agree with you with that. Anything else you want to share with us?
construction, yes. Um, Many other like construction possibility is not in the real world. It's not really going to be a problem in Metacity or in the
Mm.
metaverse in general. Like we architect when we design, there's many designs that we've been told that it's not possible just simply because of the client doesn't like it, or it's just the material is not available in the local context, or just the
Mm.
material is too expensive, or you need to research to do it. Um, and many great architecture project is not really happening just because of the so many problem happening with financial or political problem happening, and make
Because of
those great
finances?
yeah not really happening. Of course, in metaverse is way more easy that like we can translate all this kind of great architecture in to be view in the city. And I think also like the human experience in the metaverse is also very different. Many physical boundary could be controlled. Um, like also we can easily to teleport, we can easily walk through the
Yeah,
world, like
true.
flying even without like any vehicle. Uh, and the aesthetic of the building, I think, is also should be very important because of we experience it only with our eyes, and
Mm.
so yeah, the aesthetic of the building should be very important.
Yes.
So for me to design and to create a building in Metacity and the master plan, it basically to try to set settings in a new set of rule and
Mm.
constraints, basically applying new work
Mm.
and based on the I think mostly from the user experience, um, and also there's a current capability of computational power. And first, we are now like trying to working on those rules, but also of course all of the rule will be later to be adapted and adjusted by the decentralized autonomous organization. Um, Voting, they will vote for this kind of rule that going to be suitable for the city.
Yeah. You see that. Of course, in the real world, architects must consider like gravity and other structural factors. But in Metacity, however, I guess those problems do not have to be considered, right? Because when I see the trailer you have centered, we have seen in the beginning that there's a city in the sky. Yeah. So I believe that those can be those buildings, though construction can be come true in the city. And thanks for your answer. Let's come to the third question. Um, this question also involves a similar subject around the difficulties an architect may face, which is what are the economic and environmental problems an architect and master planner could face? How could Metacity solve these problems?
Um, I think the master plan and architecture in the real world actually have
Mhm.
a big impact on the local economic and environment. And one of the most biggest that's called by master plan is unsustainable strategy of the real estate development. I think
Right.
many forests and nature reserve area have been destroyed and replaced by concrete jungle basically. And many master plan and building in the real world is not really developed properly, and it's resulting in many ghost town happening around the world. And it's causing like really heavy damage to the environment. And of course, there's a lot of like master plan and real estate development that they only care about like trading the land and getting selling the
Yeah.
land without actually carefully consideration about like real development or like real habitation in the area.
Yeah.
And of course, land in the real world is limited, like we have just on Earth, and resource is also getting more and more limited. And every single human development, like how no matter how they say it's sustainable, it is it's always like causing a problem to the local environment and other species as well, not just
Mhm.
animal, human. So I think with Meta City obviously providing a new land, a new frontier that
Mhm.
where all these kind of economical forces that can start to chase and gain benefit in the metaverse without actually making any problem to the real life local economic environment, and of course for sure environment and other species. We're not suffering anything from human development.
Cool. That sounds excellent. I believe it's really important to make sure that MetaCity is able to control the availability of the land clause. So let's come to our next question. What are the factors that affect the price of a building and a land block, whether in the real world or in MetaCity? What do you think?
I think there's many factors that could affect the
Mhm.
price of the block. In the real world, I think there's several theories. We have been trying to reading the pattern of the price and predict it and try to set the price of land block in a large scale logical manner. However, I think there's some common factor like first is location of the land. I think the closer land block to the city center, the price is going to be higher. Second one is going to be the quality of the land. If we see like a lot of development around that area, the neighborhood, I think will improve showing the quality of the land. And the third one is maybe the story. Um, a lot of story of the land or history that actually could make the land having extra value and
Yeah.
doing it. I think that is a factor that is affecting the price of the land in the real world.
Mhm.
And in the meta city, there's clearly some differences. Um,
What's the
and the
differences?
real world, we have the flat land almost, and the city in the real world is mostly developed as like a circle centric, and then it's have ring
Mhm.
roads and we have different car. But in the meta city, uh, the first city is a sky town. We have
Yeah.
a continuous mobile strip with three cars, so it's more like an endless linear city. But it's also like having mountain basically like up and down like a mountain in the sky. And most of the city in the real world is of course is based on a fixed location, and it's having like a local economic and having like history around it.
Mhm.
How Metacity, however, our first small town is truly a global city, as it can fly 2.5 kilometer above water, and it can fly around the world.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, the price also heavily depend on the global economic. It's not dependent on global and local one. And
Mhm.
is Metacity is between the metaverse ecosystem. The price of Metacity, of course, in be affected by the success of this metaverse world. We are trying all together creating it. And for me, it's a land that actually already been there for a while. It's a metaverse concept. But now is really the time is for it to expand.
Yeah. Yeah, well, because you have mentioned about the Mobius strip, and I also have heard of it. I heard that people said if you draw a line starting at a point in the middle of the strip, Mobius will meet itself again, but the other side of the strip. And if you continue, that line will meet the starting point again. So that will have the two times length of the original strip. And I've heard that this line is also a traffic access throughout the design of the city, right?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. That's really interesting. For our final question, could meta city architecture structure have an impact on today's modern world structure?
Yeah, I think sure is having affecting affection. Architecture is actually have been a way like about creating vision of the future buildings. It's not about like creating like a vision of the past building actually. And many architects have been always like fascinating about visualizing a world that is in far future. Um, Instead of the building that like we will build next month, it's like quite straightforward. And many visionary architects uh, from the past could have like a big impact on how we are building now. Um, for example, like in I think 1912, um, Miles van der Rohe, one of the very famous architect for modernism, he draw an building um, full of glass, a curvy building full of glasses, and 70 years later, there's many building in New York were building that way, and then there's actually one replica of that building, even when he
Yeah,
already died.
yeah,
Um,
really close.
Meta City is going to be a platform for those visionary architecture to be experiment and to be like, experienced as well. And by designing and simulating the metaverse, many advantages also and many problems of the designs could be explored. And of course, next one going to be like going through all this kind of iteration, and maybe it can become building in real life in the near future. And well, so metaverse structure is really a idealistic platform that could, when we could testing out many solution and simulation that could apply to solve real world problem. I think.
Yeah, thank you. That's perfect. And I think you have a lot of interesting points. Um, especially those that have a differentiate Metacity to the real world, and I find it not only interesting but quite useful. So, to conclude our questions to speaker sections, that's concluded our sections. Thank you. For the next sections, our communities always wants our speaker to answer their questions. So here is the chance for you guys to do so. During our previous sections, we have received lots of questions from you guys, and I will be pick one by one some questions that I think is the most appropriate and relatable to these AMS sessions. Let's see what questions seem to be most relevant in today's topic of the architecture discussion. Okay. So for our first question here, It's rather simple, but quite important actually. From UWNG. I don't know. I'm sorry. I don't know how to spell it. The question is: when designing MetaCity's infrastructure, where do your ideas come from? Why use the Mobius strip as a main city?
Hmm.
Can
I think
you? Yeah.
the Metacity infrastructure,
Mm-hmm.
first and foremost, is based on the property of the digital infrastructure that we have. It's have to be like an immersive virtual world. It have to be like
Mm-hmm.
VR and AR technology, and of
Right.
course blockchain technology. Um, the design also need to be believable and a meaningful word that not only make the metaverse city to be like very enjoyable to explore, but also to create actually a whole new universe with history and a projected future that could in a way that have predict and solving like what I said real world problem a part of it.
Yeah.
And the story of the city is not now it's a non-disclosure matter, I can tell. But
Mm-hmm.
however, I can briefly give you a spoiler that it's based in a distant future where humans have been already developed the anti-gravity material that could help us lift up the city from water to the
Yeah.
sky and it to
Yeah.
become a Mobius strip. Uh, and that's why we call it the Skyrise city.
Yeah.
And it's the capital city. Um, the Mobius strip is, yeah, as you notice, it's an infinitive continuous strip in 3D. So there's no dead end into this city. And it's flying like 2.5 kilometer above the water. And so it's still approachable from Earth. It's not like far away in the space. And as I explained,
Mm-hmm.
gravity in the metaverse is a material that can playing around in the city.
Mm-hmm.
So this flying Mobius strip is actually making the city look impossible in the real world, but it's like totally possible in the metaverse, and it's actually utilize the power of imagination. Um, the city itself want to have three core:
Yeah.
artificial city, energy, and environment, and
Mm-hmm.
to create a triangulated balance within the city. The deeper story of the core will decide with you the next MAMA. Yeah, for this one we just limit at that.
Yeah, thank you for your answer. The Mobius strip, as I have said, and I have said, is used as a main city is indeed a very original and creative part of Metacity, I must say, and it's also quite appealing when you look at this unique safe. I mean, I never look at a city like this. It's flying and have like unique shape in the sky. Thank you. So let's come to our next question. Um, the question from a user named Just Daisy. Um, the question is, why are NFTs and down important in architectural design and the master plan of Metacity? Yeah, it's relating to the NFT.
Yeah, I think it's super important. Um,
Mhm,
Without those technology, I think MetaCity would be just like another city builder games, like
mhm,
SimCity or City Skyline, and many other MMO games that have
mhm,
been developed by a traditional game developer. However, the decentralization of the creation process, making this city become more approachable for many designers and architects around the world. And in my roles of the architects leader, I'm helping to creating and defining rules and guidance for the first city. But most of the other building will be created by architects and artists around the world in a co-creation manner. That's what we're trying to achieve.
Yes.
NFTs as a non-fungible token is one of the biggest recent development in blockchain technology, and it gives architects and designer and artists as well a medium to keep their
Mhm.
originality of the product and
Mhm.
authorship of the creation.
Mhm.
For DAO, the decentralized autonomous organization, is not only to actually is playing a decisive role for designing the decision of the city with
Mhm.
direction of the city who master plan development will go, but also is for the design and aesthetic of the building. All the decision will be made through a voting process and through DAO in Metacity. And
Mhm.
if even like if the original master plan that we create were not able to fulfill the new need of the new citizens, its own way can be reconsidered and adjust with ease actually because of its digital
Yes.
work. Everything can be changed easily.
Yeah. Thank you for your answer.
Mm.
Um, we have received a lot of interesting questions, but it's really hard to pick them all. But as a quick reminder before we continue, for those who um, for those who have known, and we will have a 200 USDT prize pool. So prepare your questions real quick. Let's come to our next question. Uh, what should I pick? Hmm, I would be so. I would be a little bit picky from the one. I'm sorry, I cannot like spell your name, but he's from. The question is that what makes Metacity architecture structure unique? Is from G Tira.
Mm. Yes. So for the building and the master plan in the Metacity, actually using designing using like one of the most advanced design method is called parametric design, computational design. And such method is not only utilize computational power in the design process, but also giving the user and the player the chance to
Mhm.
adjust or optimize the building later on. Um, Most of the design of the building now in Metacity is futuristic looking, but
Mhm.
all of these they have a deeper story behind, with link with the three cores that define the city and all the
Mhm.
assets that go along with it.
I'm really looking forward for that story because with all of the things you say, it must be really, really interesting and something that I can't imagine about. Thank you. Um, okay, what about the fourth one? The fourth one. Okay, so the fourth one is when designing buildings and other structures in general. Are there designs you placed them on? Are there designs you
Mm.
placed them on? You get?
Well,
Do you
that's
need me to repeat? Thank.
yeah, I understand the question. I think the building in Meta City, we do actually have many inspiration sources. Um, like of course, the architecture in the real world is one of the most important inspiration. The
Oh.
one from the master sci-fi movie, of course, fiction novel, and a lot of artists, the traditional and the digital one. And however, the three elements that's always drive our design inspiration, and both in real life and in metaverse, is like human nature and technology. And that three translate into the main three main factor that defines the city characteristic: the artificial iconicity core, the environment, and the energy core. And each of the design of the building is actually a fragment that taken out from the main storyline, but they also have their own creation idea. All of them together will for sure creating a dynamic city that will be full of surprise to explore. And you can just exploring around in our city explorer games, and we see like any surprising moment.
Yeah. Yeah. So in fact, there are many factors that influence the outcome of Metacity, right? You take the inspiration from outside sources as well to design the best possible building suitable. Thank you. And for the last and final question of our AMA, we have noticed a very interesting question that focuses on fortune concepts of and plant, which is from Alimos. Because Metacity is a digital world, structural impossibilities are not a factor. What are some of the most futuristic concepts Metacity has planned for architecture design?
Mhm. Yeah, I think there's many futuristic worlds that happening in movies or um, yeah, in sci-fi fiction novel. But for us, it's one of the most futuristic concept. I think, as I explained before, it's like we can playing around with gravity. That actually is not happening in many other fiction movies. um, yeah, because of gravity is material that we can actually use when ready. We can redefine where is the ground actually. Um, Getting structure that normally not possible when you look at it in real world, and also creativity also like come from often like unexpected inspiration, and also like have boosting up the co-creation process. um, we actually know constraint, and of course we are utilizing the power of computational, which mean also like we also using a little bit of AI to help us to design. And I believe with many of these creative idea, um, we will together building like a very creative and full of surprise and enjoying moment to discover within the city.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for all that insightful information. Like you guys, I have seen lots of the questions you ask, but as always, we cannot answer all of them in our AMA session. I hope you have all taken something in from this AMA session and maybe have increased your interest in what lies behind our architectural construct. For those who still have questions unanswered, our team will be sure to get back to you and hopefully have a clear enough response. So that's what's the end of our AMA. Do you have anything to say to our beloved audience?
Well, I just want to say thank you again for let me joining this AMA, and
Mhm,
thank you for having me this great as a guest speaker. It's
mhm.
very welcoming to see many questions and being asked, and also we will try to answer more questions in our community channel. Thank you again, and hope to see you all soon.
Yeah, thank you. Um, Thank you for your time today, your ideas for Metacities designs. I'm sure that we have learned a lot of interesting things about Metacity projects and its future plans. So thank you again, everyone who has participated in today's AMA and that have asked questions to our speaker. Metacity will host another AMA soon and have planned in many other new exciting activities. So make sure to keep update through our channels for the future. So again, I'm looking forward to seeing you in our next AMAs. Bye. Goodbye.
Bye bye.
Bye.